Hey everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations, and you're with Simon today. And we're going to be talking about the new moon in Sagittarius, and in particular, the new moon that is taking place for us right now in the most intense Neptune conjunct the South Node transit that we've been experiencing since the year 2000. So get ready for one intense ride this month. I must admit, from my own personal experience, not only for preparing for this video, but also by connecting with my own energetic space, how today has been, and in particular, how the energies have been creating deep emotional confusion as well as profound sense of overwhelmingness. This new moon in Sagittarius definitely is going to bring quite an intense ride. So yeah. So I hope everybody's good and settled in for a video that I'm going to be sharing today on this subject. I've got a lot on my heart that I would like to reveal. So that is something that I'm hoping to really enjoy within myself today as I share this, and also to just I think I'm kind of lost for words to a certain degree. I have Neptune conjunct, or I have transiting Mercury conjunct my Neptune at this stage, so my awareness is super sensitive or hypersensitive to dimensions of reality that I can't even process with my linear mind. So I find myself like really jumping abstract timelines very quickly. So, but at the same time, I have found myself being able to access profound states of clarity as well. So it's been kind of mad for me as well over the last 2 days particularly. So for any of you that's watching this video after this live stream that's taking place right now, just a couple of timestamps for you quickly. So I'm going to be talking firstly about Sagittarius itself, like as an archetype. So a little bit on that, and then I'll talk about the symbolism that is associated with the chart, and then kind of giving a deeper overall intuitive reflection of my own thoughts as this transit takes place. So if you're looking just for the information on the Sagittarius archetype, I would probably skip another 5 minutes ahead into this video. Okay, so when you look at the natural zodiac itself, okay, when you understand the 12 archetypes and their evolutionary intention, when consciousness or awareness gets to Sagittarius, we are evolving out of the dynamics that is Scorpio, okay? And this means that the energy is transferring from a feminine, like receptive, deeply going into the core of our beingness in Scorpio and the undercurrent of our psyche, to the yang energy of Sagittarius, which is going out there and exploring. And I remember Jeffrey talking about Sagittarius as the archetype where we begin to see life in a more positive and happy and jovial way, and begin to learn to laugh at ourselves, at the reality that this is, the phenomena of reality here. And that transition is really interesting, because in Scorpio, we're so heavily burdened by the unconscious, subterranean, emotional experience of life, that when we do actually move out into the more Sagittarius field or frequency, there's openness, okay? And that's why Sag has a deep connection towards higher consciousness, because there is an exploration here where we're coming out of the depths and saying, okay, so there's more to life and we've got to go and explore that, right? So the energy transference is from yin to yang. It's from again, from feminine to masculine. The energy is going outwards, and so it's a fire sign, and we are traveling into exploration. So deeply rooted in the Sagittarius archetype is the exploration archetype, okay? The expression of exploration, the search, right? Which is why when you look at its symbolism itself, you can see that it is deeply rooted in the arrow, okay? So the exploration, the search, the shooting of the arrow into the distance and then the exploration of it. Now, if we had to kind of just leave the human personality and descriptions and transcend the psychology of our personalities and what that means for us as a human being, Sagittarius deeply reflects the natural law, okay, natural laws. It is the laws of the universe that exist with that are existing without that cannot be broken by human man-made concepts and ideas. Okay, so an example that we can talk about is the nature of gravity in itself, right? We understand that if we had to take a glass and let it go, standing from a high-rise building, it would fall. We could observe that this reality is present with us. We can observe that when the weather turns cold, that life then recedes into its patterns of protectiveness, right? We, in the Northern Hemisphere, for instance, will, well, you know, obviously winter is everywhere, but in the Northern Hemisphere particularly, we tend to put on lots of layers of clothing because this is a needed asset as we engage these minus 15-degree temperatures, right? Your body would not be able to cope with the extreme temperature, just as with extreme heat that would be experienced in deserts, for instance. There would be a natural law that you would respond to in order for your own life to exist, okay? And that brings me to another aspect of the Sagittarius natural law concept. We're also dealing with how things operate beyond the scope of, again, human interaction. So one of the things that I was reflecting upon today about the nature of relationships was that man-made ideas, especially around gender role assignments, okay, in other words, this is the man, this is the female, this is what you do, that's what you do, and you just kind of exist within those boundaries of what you're supposed to be defined as. We as human beings, and especially the emotional dynamics, do not hold the same structure as expression. So what happens is that you have, say, for instance, the husband that goes out into the workforce, he does that, he follows his dream, but the mom, for instance, or the wife stays home, she wants to activate her dreams as well, but the gender role assignments has created these boundaries and definitions that say this is how you should behave. And what happens is there begins to be a natural suppression of emotional realities. Natural dynamics arise up within the consciousness and within the soul and within the human being's emotional reality that is not honoring authenticity and truth about what the soul wants. Okay. And then what naturally happens through these dynamics is that you have psychological experiences of imbalances in relationships because of these gender role assignments. And that arises because these man-made ideas about what is the right way to be, or the appropriateness, or the definition, that creates, like I said, the uneasiness and psychological issues that are associated with relationship dynamics. So what I'm trying to say is that if two people entered a relationship in which there was no definition of how the relationship should be, other than what is completely natural for those two who are interacting with each other. So let's say Soul A has dynamics that are deeply rooted in emotional growth, okay? Like emotional bonding, right? So Cancer type of archetypal stories. And you have person B that's also learning about those dynamics, but is maybe learning more about the nature of balance, equality, and harmony. When person A and person B meet in a relationship, it's not about who's supposed to do what or gender roles that are from societal definitions, but more about what are two individuals learning on their individual soul's growth path, and how do they find common ground in their relationship dynamics that honors those individual patterns. the natural law here is that the relationship will naturally become attracted to each other if the emotional space, as well as space itself, was honored, and that each person felt as if their reality or sacredness was validated. And there would be a natural attraction because there wouldn't be feelings of resentness. There wouldn't be feelings of unresolved feelings of suppression or suppression and stuff that naturally comes through belief systems created by man. And that this subject can go really, really deeply when we talk about the Virgo Pisces axis, and in particular the story of Adam and Eve and that mythological script that is ingrained in our brains and our consciousness, and how we play out those stories without even recognizing it. But that's for a later conversation. So the natural law is what is authentic in relationships, and how do we live in alignment with those natural laws that don't violate these natural balancing of energies. Because at the end of the day, it's just masculine and feminine, or positive and negatives, just balancing in accordance with where there is weight over here or where there is weight over there. You understand, right? So there are these natural laws in which we exist within that are deeply embedded within our heart and within the frequency of our vibrations, and not in the construction of mental paradigms in which we have developed and become so sort of attached to these scripts. So through observation of, say for instance, the way that the sun rises and the way that the sun sets, the observation of what happens to the weather when the sun sets, and how do we respond to these natural occurrences in our lives, and the observations that we take as we observe these phenomena that take place within our lives. Again, so Sagittarius is much about that exploration of the phenomena of reality, but also our relationship to how we interact with the phenomena of reality. Okay, that's why if you look at the picture that I've actually attached to this video presentation, you'll see that there's the camera's over there, but you can see in the picture that there's a vastness of openness. And then there's a person kind of on the boat over there, really just only being able to capture an essence or an absence of that vastness. And that's his little net, his fishing net there. And he's exploring the waters, which is the emotional reality of the human experience, right? The reflection of ourselves as we engage in this world. So, and there's many sort of pieces of information that can be downloaded from that picture, but I'll just kind of keep it simple there for now. So again, Sagittarius, deeply rooted in our relationship to the phenomena of reality, our observations of those things, and the natural exploration of who we are and what we are, and the philosophies that establish themselves as we pursue the truth. Okay. Now, when we come back to the body again, when we come back to the human psyche, we understand that part of the emotional dynamics that comes with the biology of this body is emotional security and the need for survival. Okay. Now, when you look at the 12 archetypes again, and in the natural zodiac, it's a circle of 12 archetypes beginning with Aries and ending with Pisces. We also have degrees, okay? So when you look at an astrology chart, you notice that these like green lines, green dotted lines, you see that there's also these blue lines as well, and you see that there is these red lines as well, and they're making kind of connections to other planets in the zodiac, right? So those would be references aspects, and they indicate a mathematical degree between planetary positions. Okay. Now the same thing actually applies for symbols, constellations in the natural zodiac. So again, the circle, and then the zodiac representing the 12 signs. So you'd have Aries over here and Libra over here. That would be a 180-degree angle. Does that make sense? So in the natural zodiac, there are 3 symbols, okay, connected to, or 2 symbols, should I say, that are connected to Sagittarius that influence the nature of Sagittarius on a human level. Okay. And so this is what I'm talking about. This angle from Taurus to Sagittarius is 150 degrees. And the other angle is the Cancer archetype making its connection, or the archetype of Cancer making a connection to Sagittarius. And this is what gets formed as a yod or a yod. Now, these two archetypes are not seen or expressed or feel comfortable in when Sagittarius is connected to its expression. In other words, Taurus and Cancer itself does not like gel well with Sagittarius archetype. So if you've got, say, for instance, Venus in Taurus and your Pluto is in Sagittarius, they will naturally make an inconjunct angle, which is it's like an off-putting angle. It's a crisis angle. So the point that I'm trying to make here, okay, is that Sag in itself has a deep need to feel or to fulfill the needs of Taurus, which is survival. Okay, what are my values and what do I believe are absolutely essential for me to survive? And on the other hand, we also have the emotional security that exists in Cancer that is deeply influencing Sagittarius as an archetype. And so what we have here in Sag is the need for our values and and survival, and our need for our emotional safety and security investing in our belief systems, which is why it's so incredibly difficult for us to shift belief systems just like that. That's why we get conflict, because we're essentially dealing with two different perspectives or truths or ideologies or belief systems that have fundamental differences in its needs and survival and its values. Okay, so we have Democrats and we have Republicans. The conflict arises because the emotional security invested in the value systems of Democrats is in opposition to the emotional and security needs that are invested in the belief systems that is Republican. Okay, neither of them represent anything other than perspectives of the totality relative to a way of living. Okay, it's preference. And this is a very, very deep-seated experience, because underlying our psychology, when we really, really become honest with ourselves, is we have an emotional attachment to those belief systems or perceptions that we find familiar with ourselves. So any belief system that you have, even astrology, okay, when you pay attention to the reasons why you believe in astrology, you'll see that there's an inherent belief system, value system that is connected to it, okay? And that value might be soul awareness, that value might be anything that you assign to its needs, right? And then you also have the security and emotional attachment to it. You identify as a Republican, you identify as a Democrat, you identify as somebody that watches astrology or is interested in astrology. It is a way of emotionally connecting. If it wasn't there, you wouldn't be emotionally connected to it, it wouldn't be a part of your philosophy, and there would be an absence, right? And this goes for everything. We can talk about somebody that believes deeply in climate change to somebody that believes deeply in saving the ants, as an example. Everyone, including myself, whatever it is that you believe in or fundamentally call your truth, is coming from a space of an emotional connection that reflects a sense of identity and that you validated through the needs or values in which you feel are attached to those two things. And it's difficult for us to psychologically accept other dynamics if we are deeply, deeply invested emotionally and on a survival basis with those two archetypes, which is why, again, when you see wars, for instance, or fanatical experiences, a lot of the time it's about, this is what I need to survive, especially religious wars, going back, dating back into the past, and also wars that we have yet today. There's a fundamental root of survival. People will kill because their survival is being threatened for something they completely believe in. So again, pay attention to the nature of your truth as it tries to convince and convert other people to believe in the truth that is yours. And the reason why this would be the case is because feeling alone in your truth will naturally trigger your sense of emotional security, because we are trained to feel like it's okay to feel more secure when people validate us. It's wonderful to feel like our values and needs are shared as group dynamics. And so again, like I said, any argument that you get yourself into, any perception of truth that you believe is the totality, observe the nature of your values and needs and emotional securities that are attached to it, and how are you projecting them into said environment or said person in order for your own feelings of security and safety to be validated as the truth. And if there's any person that knows about this experience, it's me, because not only is the moon and the sun and Saturn all conjunct my south node of my astrological chart. The new moon took place on my Uranus on my chart. So this thing just lit my whole entire my tree up like a Christmas tree. So it's definitely been a story for me to be able to get deeply connected to, and why this is the case. And again, it's emotional security, it's emotional safety that is rooted in that. And it's a very deep thing. It's not something you just kind of like, oh, okay, I've identified it. You've really got to be honest with yourself in terms of where you're coming from and how you are connecting to what you believe in. So that's why when I get presented with the questions of things like 13 sign astrology or Vedic astrology or any of those things, there's no point in looking at the belief system and picking it apart and judging it for what it is and saying, and then comparing against a belief system that you are emotionally secure and validating through your value systems because inherently each fundamental system is going to reflect an aspect of truth. And if you are doing it because you want to have it to be the ultimate truth, then you're always going to find conflict. If you accept the nature of each truth representing a path to the source, and also the source reflecting its own exploration of itself as a totality, then you will just see it as another pathway for a soul who resonates with said structures or said belief systems to understand themselves through that lens. And this is a really, 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 really deep teaching, because if we are to understand the transition that we are experiencing right now on the planet, the south node of Uranus situates between 7 and 16 degrees or 17 degrees Sagittarius, pardon me. So the south node of Aquarius reflects to us deep unconscious patterns of emotional ideals and relationships and energetic vibrations and cellular memory, in which our individuality, Uranus, has been traumatized through the most recent 6,000 years of patriarchal / unconscious soul development, but also reflecting the nature of what it is that we are actually trying to do or explore at this point in time as a consciousness, okay? And that is that we're understanding our uniqueness. We're understanding what life looks like as individual beings, reflecting their path in their direction. And how do we, as a compassionate, sort of soul awakening, heart-centered being, understand the deeper truths associated with individuality and its path for its exploration of who it is? Okay, it's a very sensitive subject, and it's being highlighted immensely as the south node of Uranus is got not only Saturn there at the moment, it also has the moon and the sun transiting over this period of time. So we're getting a very, very deep opportunity to be able to learn and unaware and then become accepting of people's perspectives as their own perspective that they're bringing to the table that is just what it is. And that as we begin to embrace this new consciousness, the transition, which will take a very long time from Pisces age to Aquarius age, will begin to take place, where tribes and frequencies and vibrations of sameness will naturally collide and come together. And the need for experiencing the merging process that was in Pisces as a 2,000-year cycle, that will begin to fade away. And the way that we're learning to do this is by learning our individuality and then finding out what tribe belongs to us. And that will begin to allow us to accept other tribes as their own individual story, as their own individual experience, and that's who they are. And we just leave them to do that. If people want to study numerology and say that that's the way to path to source, you accept that and say, cool, fantastic. Versus, no, that's not the way to do it. This is the way to do it. You understand? So a very profound set of circumstances that are available for us right now with that Sag new moon experience. Now, I'm just going to take a sip of water over here. Now, at the moment, and if you haven't read the article that is attached to this video, I highly recommend going and checking that out. That's on simonforster.com, the website. And the link should be in the description below, or check it out on Facebook as well. And that's Raising Vibrations Astrology. Because in there, I articulate the aspects and phases of certain planets, and also a deeper message that is associated with this story today. So what we have at the moment is we have Pluto and Venus currently transiting through Capricorn. Now, Pluto's been there for a long period of time, and by now you should have known that Pluto through Capricorn is essentially just wiping away all said structures and emotional paradigms that we as human beings have evolved through in the past, and just kind of like collapsing them all and saying, that's not how we can evolve anymore, it's limiting. Okay? Now we have Venus making its cycle across that place all the time, and it's completed an evolutionary cycle when Saturn probably was in the early degrees of Sagittarius. The South Node probably wasn't in Pisces when the last time Venus conjuncted Pluto. I need to check that out, but I don't think that it was the case. Of course, Uranus was in the second decan of Aries. And Pluto, Jupiter wasn't in Libra. So the evolutionary cycle of the most recent Pluto and Neptune, pardon me, not Neptune, but Venus cycle has culminated itself. And now we've reached a point where it's in a new phase relationship, okay? New phase means that the relationship between the planet Venus and the planet Pluto is developing and beginning to present new ways in which we begin to see new emotional and needs-based dynamics within our lives, okay? And that will be then connected, of course, to Jupiter's transit through Libra, which is really, really interesting because remember, we're not dealing with just like symbols that are randomly making circles around the place, just going like that. And like, okay, this seems fun. There is evolutionary progression that is manifesting for generations of souls who have chosen to incarnate themselves during specific time frames, in which specific time frames later on in their lives are unfolding as their soul awakens. So for the Pluto and Virgos, for instance, you have the transiting North Node on your Pluto at this stage. So you're deeply, deeply, deeply going through a huge soul transformation in which the undercurrents of your own desires are being brought to the surface and said, we're coming to power, right? The Jupiter transit in Libra is awakening the Pluto and Libras to understand the fundamental lessons and themes and experiences for you guys, okay? The Pluto transiting over Uranus, Neptune in Capricorn is allowing the Pluto and Scorpius to understand what it is that you've come to learn about yourselves, right? Study those symbols and you'll get a very, very strong understanding of why you are, what you're currently evolving yourself through at this stage. So again, Pluto and Virgos, you're coming into power so that the new rules about how we are going to structure ourselves is coming into play. The Jupiter and Libra is bringing in the Pluto and Libras to say, okay, well, we're stepping out of the dynamics of the past of what has been our truth. We're understanding new relationship dynamics in which we're emotionally investing in self-validation and self-discovery. And we're dissolving the belief systems of the past, Saturn transiting over your Neptune, and we're also reshaping ourselves. The Pluto transiting over Scorpio's, Pluto-Scorpio generations, Neptune-Uranus, is fundamentally teaching you that you've come here to dissolve all barriers and definitions and structures that no longer serve what governs you. Okay, what is your external authority? You've come to actually do the mutation, which is we've come to understand ourselves. And we've reached a point with Neptune and Pisces in which those said structures are coming down. So you are in the process of an evolutionary and civilization collapse of its entire structure. And it's going straight to its core. And you are right there where the definitions are being transmuted right under your noses. So your evolutionary direction is not clear and apparent at this stage because you're not living in a world that is constructed relative to what your frequency represents. We're still in the Pluto Libra kind of story at this stage. You understand this point? So the context here is Venus is now transiting in this new phase to Pluto, and we are at a new evolutionary cycle in which an entire evolutionary shift, the key word is shift, within our consciousness is now present with us. And we've been going through these shifts on a frequent basis, so it's not like anything magical. But in this particular instance, the dynamics of how we are going to relate to ourselves in terms of what is fair and not fair is very apparent to us at this stage. There is mass separation around people's belief systems and ideologies, and the ultimate story here is the separation is what's trying to be dissolved through Neptune, through Pisces. But we will become made aware that the ego structures that we hold in place that are rooted in separation, which are from the old paradigms of the Virgo Pisces age, the last 2,000 years, this type of stuff is very, very available to us right now. So a video that I highly recommend watching is the one that's called What's Going On? Awakening the Collective Consciousness. Okay, that's on the YouTube channel. I think it was done like 2 or 3 weeks ago. That was a video that really, really goes into that deeply, okay? Because it's everything to the surface, how way of relating to ourselves as a human race, that ego is dissolved. It's no longer there. So that's why we experience so much chaos, because we're literally at this point where we're going, okay, so how do we reshape ourselves? How do we respond to this reality? How do we understand what is going on? Now, the funny thing about it is that answering that question in itself becomes too mental in that way. And it's really about exploring and experiencing what is natural for you as your life is unfolding, because that's the point. The point is we're getting closer to the center. Neptune through Pisces is bringing us closer to who our beingness, who we are, what we fundamentally represent at a soul level. And as that consciousness starts to begin to come up, we can begin to understand that the ego that is being rebuilt is a service to soul awareness, which is being awoken through the extremities of external realities that are clearly representing that everything's just going crazy. Okay, you can see that where anything in the reality at this point in time has lost its mind, okay, or that you can clearly see insanity occurring, that's where there's been a deep violation of natural law, because there is a deep need for things to stay the same. There's a deep need for control. There's a deep need for stability and emotional, for the waters to stay the same. Whereas, newsflash, that's the complete opposite. In fact, the more you surrender to the nature of existence coming at you at this point in time, the deeper you will feel a sense of serenity and peace at the fact that this is what's happening. We're on a tsunami. We're riding the tsunami. We're going through intense change. We're awakening. We're going through massive frequency adjustments and old paradigms being released out of your energetic fields. This is happening on so many different levels that to psychologically process it, even to emotionally digest the stuff, takes tons and tons of just quietness, right? And let's be honest, you spend 25 minutes on Facebook and then kind of just like sit back for a bit and breathe, and you'll feel the intensity of chatter that is consistently there. And I'm not saying that social media is bad. I'm just saying that when you get sucked into that vortex, you can feel how your consciousness is being removed from your body, placed in an external entity, swirling around of all these types of perspectives, ideologies, perspectives, etc., etc. And then when you bring your attention back over here, you're like, you're almost as if you're experiencing vertigo. It's insane. So the story here with this Pluto and Venus conjunction that's taking place, creating a new phase relationship, its natural square to Libra in Jupiter in Libra, and Venus is square naturally to Uranus in Aries at this stage, creating this T square in these cardinal signs, is this pressure, okay, that you feel inside of you, that you're in limited space and you want to break out. And yet at the same time, that very space that's feeling as if you're like limited and you're wanting to break out, and it's like, when am I ever going to feel, is promoting the need for change. It's promoting the need for this tension to be moved. And that's what squares are. They're like tectonic plates that are keep on pushing against each other until eventually something gives way, and then you have a shift, right? So that's the first square that's taking place. And then you have the other square that's taking place with, you've got the moon and, of course, the sun squaring the north and south nodes in Pisces. You've got the sun squaring Neptune, which has probably made everything a lot more crazier than what it appears, or at the same time, intense amounts of inspiration just flooding through your consciousness, and it feels like you can't stay grounded. That energy in itself is revealing to us that the freedom that it is that we seek is not found in external structures. I did a reading for somebody yesterday talking about the dynamics of relationship dynamics, and I was referring, constantly keep on reinstating that when we want things to be good, when we want things to have positive outcome, and we are predicting that through an astrological kind of like configuration, we're placing our sense of a security in the fatedness of things, right? And what I'm trying to teach and also practice myself is the ability to bring your consciousness back into the body so that the truth and reality and influence that you have on your life is governed by the natural laws that are integrated into your soul. In other words, soul has an emotional path. It's here to learn this. It's here to experience this. That growth is dictated based on your response to said honoring of soul, okay? Now, if you are to be interacting with a relationship dynamic that is honoring that, like I mentioned earlier, you'll find that the possibility of that relationship dynamic is actually going to have a far greater lifespan, provided, of course, that that there isn't a comic story here that is about separation in that sense. But the point here is that you honoring your soul's growth is the best way to establish security in something that you want to grow along with. Okay, it's not 100% the truth, but it is absolutely the best way to be able to feel or to give calmness to the mind that wants to have things placed in security. In other words, externalized security patterns. Okay, and we're evolving out of a state, and this is again referring back to the same story here with this chart of Pluto through Capricorn, Venus's new phase relationship to Capricorn, Pluto, Jupiter in Libra oppose Uranus in Aries, Saturn in Sagittarius, deeply rooted in the current energies of the stage is a realization that any external structures that we as human beings have evolved through in the past that have been the safe holding or safe haven or place in which we have deposited our emotional welfare, that will be revealed to you in a way and said, look, this is no longer working for yourself and will threaten your security. Because we have come to learn that the belief system that we have come to honor is not a religious externalized ideal, but more about what is your own truth, your own path to authenticity, your own perspective of what is the vision that is you. Okay, and so that reflects the natural beautiful square between the sun in Sagittarius and Neptune in Pisces. Sagittarius squares Neptune. Again, we're talking about the harmonic relationships or should I say the angles that take place in the natural zodiac. So what you have here is vision, right? Intuition is Sagittarius and Neptune, okay? We're deeply connected to the abstract, the right brain. We all have a vision of our reality. That vision of reality comes from our own direct path that we walk every single day. What is the path you walk every single day? And how do you validate that experience as the way to awaken your soul's story, to awaken your soul's experience? And when your attention is placed firmly in that process, your day-to-day activities become an awakening that is separate from enlightenment. Okay? And this is what's so key to the story. Enlightenment, again, if we pay attention to it, is this need for taking our awareness and reaching a state of enlightenment, okay? Awareness, there it is, fantastic, great, and then consistently pursuing that all the time. Whereas awakening is more about walking a path that is revealing to you through the heart and deep surrender. Awakening is awakening your own consciousness from the inside out, and that your day-to-day path becomes that process. You are awakening your vision, you're awakening your soul, you're awakening to the path that is this incarnation. Okay? And from that point of view, your truth is that. That is the path to authenticity. Okay? And each of us brings that vision uniquely to the table. And so there is a removal of the externalized guru. There's a removal of the sage that exists outside of ourselves, or the higher beingness. I wrestled deeply when, just before, with myself, just before I came onto this stream, because I felt like one of the things that I don't want to do is sit here and be the person that is perceived as like has all the answers. Okay, I'm not saying that that's the truth and that's how you feel, but I want everybody to really get this. What I'm doing here is like deeply understanding my own process through what I express. Part of my soul's journey is to put itself out there into the world and to deeply connect from a space that is my own emotional reality. Okay, part of that truth, because of all my Sagittarius, is to reflect vision. Okay, but my visions and my communication and what I express is coming through the heart, but it is not the totality of the truth. And that my expression of what you are watching today should not be seen as something being put on a pedestal. Okay, I'm a human being just like you, and I have my own soul's shadow that I deal with as well, and that I'm not anything other than a co-creator of this universe alongside you as well. And that your path is equally as important as mine, and your truths and visions that you can share with the world and with me are deeply illuminating at the same level as mine is. You understand? So the point here, as I complete this new moon message, is that we have come to recognize at this point in time in our lives that our path is not about seeking externalized authorities as a way of validating our existence, but to recognize that as we search within ourselves and we find the path of awakening within ourselves, we become our own gurus, our own sages, our own masters of our destiny, okay? And that when that gets presented and we color the fabric of our consciousness with our own artistic expression, then do we become inspiration for others. Then do we become a validator of our personal truth as an equal reflection of the totality of consciousness. Okay? That one person's vision coupled with a thousand groups of people's visions is reflecting the consciousness of Neptune. That is reflecting the nature of the totality. And that we've all come here to watch that unfold for ourselves. And that this new moon is promoting this deep internal realization that it is about our journey and our realization within ourselves and our truth, and understanding that and being able to connect with it deeply and have reflection in that process. Okay? All right, so everyone, thanks very much for allowing me to share that with you today. I really hope you enjoyed that video. So I've got some time where I'd like to connect with anybody that's on the chat box at this stage. And so if you've got questions relating to this new moon experience, or if you've got a question related to anything that I was talking about, I'd be happy to respond to that. So I'm just going to quickly set myself up for that for everybody. So let's get that chat box. Okay. So, okay. I'm just setting up the screen over here so that I can see everybody or see the pictures. There we go, the chat box. Okay. Okay, so let's have a look. Heart Union says, what can we do about this confusion, Simon? So this is a really good question because I feel like this is a very important thing for everybody, for us to understand as we transition more into this Neptune field. The confusion is the Neptunian realm where our psychology or emotional ego is trying to make sense of realities that are more complex than what we can understand on a psychological level. Okay. And so the best thing to do to remove confusion is to bring yourself back to your center, because when you're in your emotional vortex and your own center of gravity, the things that are the most important to you are the day-to-day sort of like things that you need to responding to, okay? Because the moment that you begin to take your consciousness to try and figure out any externalized things, so you immediately are lacking understanding and awareness of that dynamic, that will immediately create a crisis in your consciousness because it's not fully aware of. So imagine if, like for me, for instance, okay, imagine I tried to understand the political situation in the States at this stage. Firstly, not only do I not follow any of the more deeper political sort of propaganda that takes place, I'm also not aware of intimate conversations between senators and presidents and the lawmakers, etc., etc. We don't have that information to us. It's not available to us. We don't know how policies are created. That is not available. So immediately when I take my consciousness outside of myself and I try and figure that stuff out, it's by default, there is nothing there. It's just like there's so much information that's lacking and it doesn't serve you anything. So you've got to always remember that your day-to-day activity, the way you wake up, what is life giving you at this point in time? Like in your most immediate environment, and this is the point. That's why distractions are so intensely like damaging to soul growth, because the attention to the distractions outside of yourself are removing your awareness of how you're feeling and what is appropriate and essential for your beingness right now. All right? I'm not saying completely shut yourself out from the world so that you don't know about it, but allow yourself to just look at it for what it is. Okay? Because anything that's going to be external is going to literally just going to not give you, there won't be framework, there won't be anything, any context, there's substance. Okay? So like I said, for me, I give you an example of my own self. I wake up, my responsibilities are get children to school and deal with that. Along that process is an emotional reality in which my soul's path is learning from. When I'm constantly paying attention to that thing, the process of me understanding that is right now, for where I am right now, in the now. Not in the future, not in the past, but in the right now. Like in this moment right now, okay? So the confusion is not trying to understand the confusion. but just allowing it to be. Neptune is like, it's just the reality, it's the veil, and there's far too much complexity associated with it, okay? Okay. Okay, so political leaders are saying my girlfriend is reliving her mom's death from 2.5 years ago. She is literally going insane. Please help. Okay. Let me see if there's more context to that. Okay. Okay, so I'm just reading political leaders' message over. He says, I have the sixth sense power. I've had no idea where she was, and I drove to her within 5 miles in a major city. She is also experiencing Mars and Sun powers. How do you relate to this new in Sag? That is a good question. I'm going to be really, really honest with you and say to you, I don't know. I don't know how to respond to that. I could share. No, I have no idea. I'm so sorry. I really, really don't know how to respond to that question. I would rather not say anything than just say something just for the sake of saying it. So I'd be really truthful and say I'm really sorry, but I don't know. Maybe if there's somebody in the chat that could offer anything that came through your way, but from my point of view, I really don't know. I'm super sorry. Okay. Okay. Okay, Femla Blue is saying, thank you, Simon, for your perspective on relationships. What do I, pardon me, what do I feel when what do I do when I feel I can't maintain natural law in a relationship, but I still have love for that person? We have opposing views. Again, this is a really tricky place because I don't know the answers to these things as well. I think that part of the human experience is recognizing that we are so unique and different and so unaware of how to validate those uniquenesses in a way. And because of our traumas that we carry in our psyche and our subconscious, the experience of just honoring what's available to us right now in the moment is a very important thing. So I think that like the process of emotional honesty is essential when it comes to relationship dynamics, because that emotional honesty really does validate the natural law that's inside of yourself. Again, natural law has to balance with two people, and if there is an imbalance with that process through natural law, there will be the natural dynamics that will be taking place. And that's why relationships are so difficult, because we are really unconscious about them. We don't know how they work because we don't know ourselves. And so that's why it's so important for us to understand ourselves, so that when we're relating, we can develop more self-awareness that gives us better opportunities to respond from a heart-centered place. And that is, again, looking at life through this way. It's like, it's about, yeah, exactly. So, honoring the moment is essential. Emotional honesty in the moment is also validating where you are right now in this place, and giving enough space to be able to see how your own boundaries work. Honestly, relationships are mirrors. I'm doing a little presentation tomorrow for an evolutionary astrology community and group. And part of my own soul's journey that I'm going to be speaking about is how my Mars and Venus, they're in a balsamic phase relationship. And the stories that have come, that have associated with my soul's journey, and what awarenesses have come through that. And one of them is the realization that relationships are mirrors, and people that arrive in your life, if you see your life as the Maya, if you see that there is no separation, and that anybody that arrives in your field is a reflection of your soul's energy, because you'll see that there will be archetypes in their consciousness that will be interacting with your own archetypal story. And those dynamics will be pushing and pulling and testing your own emotional development. So you're really learning about yourself through another, and whatever that person's teaching you through you not learning, through you having to put boundaries in place, or to become aware of maybe where your own rigidity or judgments on yourself are there. Those are the types of things that I would say would be healthy ways of using the relationship as a way of becoming more conscious of yourself and your story, and so that you can offer more sacredness in the relationship because you understand yourself better. Does that make sense? So like for me, for instance, you can only respect another person's rage or trauma in themselves if you can understand and respect your own, because then you can see from their perspective that that rage or trauma is very much what you would experience, and it's difficult to understand or to work through trauma and to honor that trauma in another person if you don't know it yourself. Okay. Okay. So let's have a look over here. So thanks to everybody that is responding to political leaders in the chat over there. I deeply appreciate it. Like I said, thanks, Linda. Again, grief is a natural process and expresses differently for everybody. Completely Capricorn archetype. I feel like grief in itself is connected to Capricorn, Scorpio, Pisces, and Cancer. Remember, when we lose our emotional attachment or emotional connection to something through loss, the traumatic experience there can shock us into a deep state of reflection that forces us to understand the undercurrents of our own emotional reality. So part of these experiences that we do experience on Earth and archetypes that are part of your astrology, if that's what you're dealing with at this point in time of your life, I would absolutely say that support from people that are there for you, support is a great thing, and try and finding a support group is very essential, I think, during periods of time like that, and give yourself emotional space to validate that you are grieving. We live in a world that doesn't honor the human experience. So when people naturally go through Saturn in the 10th house or any depression-like consciousness transits, like Pluto through the 10th, like Saturn through the 10th, like Mars through the 10th, like Venus through the 10th house, or Venus conjunct Saturn, Venus transit your south node, it's quite natural for your consciousness to involute on itself in order for it to regrow into something that's new. It's part of a natural cycle. But we don't know that as soul dynamics because we're not connected to the body, we're not connected to the soul. That's why this period of time is so intense for us, because we're evolving into a state in which that necessity for soul awakening is absolutely essential for us to understand ourselves, and yet at the same time we don't know that that's what's happening. So we have all these traumatic experiences and these experiences that don't allow us to understand what's going on with us. That's why I do this work, because I'm like, this is the place. We've got to understand ourselves. We've got to understand what's going on within ourselves. And the more we have that self-awareness, the better we're equipped to be able to handle these transitions and shifts that are occurring at this point in time. Okay, let's have a look. So John T writes, I have Neptune in my 3rd house in Scorpio. How do the current Neptune and other transits affect this? Because many times as I'm speaking with people, I seem confusing to some. I don't know, John, if you've managed to watch the Neptune video, Neptune in the 3rd house video that I did on YouTube. Generally speaking, in fact, every single one of you, when Neptune, the planets, is in the 3rd house of the astrological chart, your whole entire life is going to be felt like you can't connect with people through your insights and language. And the reason why this is the case is because Neptune's energy is, again, it's like the perfume. You can smell it, but you can't actually grab it. And so it's very abstract. It has non-linearity to it. It's the non-linear mind of our expression. It's where our visions come from and awareness comes from. So when Neptune transits or is in the 3rd house of the astrological chart by sign, your mind / articulation / visions are operating from a dynamic that is not compatible with the said structures of mental frameworks that humanity has built itself on. So immediately you will create a dynamic within yourself of, I can communicate, but I'm not able to be understood using natural language. I have to, Neptune, transcend the way that we dialect with each other, and the way that that naturally lands up with many people is that they express themselves through art. They express themselves through, like in my case, my moon and Neptune is in opposing each other. I have Neptune and Mercury conjunct at this point in time and in the Gemini function. The way I connect with my emotional and environment is very much rooted in imagination and visualization. Okay. And the reason why is because when you articulate something with Neptune, the totality of awareness is far too immense for a word. So it's like trying to cram 30 years of awareness into one word. It's just not going to work. So you will always appear confusing to people because it's a process of connecting with your environment through a new way. It's part of the karma that you carry. So it's looking and transcending the physical and finding new ways. So like musicians, for instance, communicate through their language, through their music and tones and vibrations. You'll be very hypersensitive to those things, which is amazing. You've got things like I said, art, again, would be great examples, okay? Now, again, you're a part of the Pluto and Virgo generation. So at this point in time, the world is transitioning into very much about dissolving the barriers of what is reality and how does that play out. So you are part of the change in which the world is literally like its frameworks is breaking. So whatever inspirations and imaginations and truths that you hold within yourself need to be expressed through what is your truth. Okay, what is it? Like when I say what your truth is, I mean like how do you see the world and how do you bring that perspective to the world? How do we see it? How is that awareness? And that's another big thing. As we transition into the more rightness, abstract kind of expression of feminine consciousness, we will begin to understand emotional awareness over time. That's why logistics themselves are mental measurement tools in order for us to measure stuff, whereas emotional growth is measured over time. So this is something that the Pluto and Virgos need to get in touch with, is that you are coming into this lifetime where you're bringing in emotional awareness and self-awareness through the like awakening of a feminine energy, a more abstractness of like, what's your truth? How do you live your day where your frequency is not consistently in crisis, as an example, okay? Okay. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, I'm just going down the chat box over here, see if I can see it. Yeah, exactly. Star Trace. I've got Neptune transiting my third house in Pisces. You can email me and we can talk about talk to animals and speak in poetry. That's exactly it. Brilliant. So thank you again to everybody that's responded to Political Leaders. I greatly appreciate the support, and in fact, that's one of the ways that the answer to his question was that it's a support process. There needs to be support there to make you feel like you can deal with these things. Okay. Yes, exactly. If I understand this correct, summer rain. Take the time to grieve. You were talking about take the time to grieve, so you can feel free to feel somebody else. As I read somewhere, I mean that's it. That's a great way to see that. What else is there? Okay. Anybody got any questions that you would like me to respond to? Otherwise, I feel like I'm coming to a natural ending with this conversation today. I think my throat has definitely taken a beating. I would like to, yeah, I've got some really exciting material on my desktop at this point in time that I'm excited to share. So at some point when I do create some space and I've got something to respond to in that way, or it comes up where that information becomes essential, then I would be sharing it. So I'm definitely excited about bringing more teachings to everybody, especially around astrology. I know that somebody had talked about doing a Venus through the houses, a video series, which I have energy to do at that point in time. So maybe I can do that as well. So yeah. Okay, so I've got one more question over here that I'll respond to, which is paint, dance, and live. Okay, Simon, any conclusions or conclusion with Chiron in Pisces going direct? I laugh because to me, Chiron, there's so much I can do to talk about Chiron. It's unbelievable. I'm ready and waiting to disseminate information about Chiron in a way that I feel can help us who are searching for Chiron stories to understand. One of the things that I can say about Chiron itself is that the process of integration of Chiron only begins at the age of 51. Okay, when your Chiron return takes place. And the reason why is because Chiron moves around the whole entire zodiac at that point in time. So there's a lot of awareness in your Chiron story that post 51 you really will get. Pre 51, it's pretty much just like waiting for the universe to unfold in its natural environment. Chiron going direct in Pisces is another layer of experiences in which we as humanity will begin to deepen our understanding of who and what we are beyond the ego. Okay? Now, imagine ego is bowl. Imagine water is consciousness in bowl. Imagine space around it is universal existence. Okay? That bowl in which that water has been existing in, that framework is beginning to expand, okay, to hold more awareness about the totality of what this existence and fabric of reality is about. Okay, so it's like we're just expanding the bowl a little bit more, and as we expand and gain new ground and territory about our understanding, we begin to then see and understand more of ourselves as deeper perceptions of soul. So Chiron's transit through Pisces is just our relationship to Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. And how do we attach emotional realities to those higher octaves and vibrations? And what does that symbolize for our definitions of what we call human beings, and how do we live in accordance with these new energies and frequencies very much rooted in our psyche? How do we deal with the transition? How do we deal with shifting our emotional reality from physical awareness to spending most of our time online? How do we adjust with the change and shifting in our reality where most of our transactions of life itself is taking place on a virtual reality? How do we deal with the fact that most of our consciousness through technology on the planet is removing us from our essence and keeping our awareness in external things? So one of the things is, okay, so we've got virtual reality goggles and stuff that are coming out at this stage, right? And it's massive because there's this interest in seeing reality through a lens. Now, the silliness of this experience is that it's fantastic to watch us create a lens in which we can see the world, and it transcends the boundaries. But what it also does is it stops us from paying attention to what's immediately in front of us, because we're getting hyped up over something that we naturally have. This is the scary thing. We as human beings only manifest something in the external world that is already contained within us. So we're using virtual reality glasses to see reality, and we're calling it virtual reality and going, oh my God, groundbreaking stuff, when we have the real thing. It's called our own eyes. So this Chiron story is about how do we begin to understand ourselves as we awaken ourselves and break the boundaries of consciousness and allow for soul awareness to bleed through, which is what you're experiencing right now. I'm sitting in Sweden. It's 10 o'clock at night here, but you all over the world in different locations, in different time frames, and what you see and experience is me in here, right? But we're in different continents. We have different, the sun is out there in the States at this point in time, and we're here, it's dark here. That's transcendence. But we're also losing the plot when we're breaking the boundaries of this by creating virtual reality in which those boundaries of limitations are being, they're dissolving there. But we're just using our own, it's just like, I don't know how to put it across. It's like our spirituality is expanding and we're getting soul awareness, but we're also in a more dimmer state, developing stuff that's disassociating us from the things that we already have. And that in itself is what I see Chiron through Pisces doing. It's like, it's that woundedness where we're operating and opening ourselves to these higher octaves, but also at the same time losing the plot. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for an incredibly wonderful live stream experience. I really hope that you enjoyed this. And if anybody is interested in supporting the work that I do, enabling me to do more of these live streams themselves, you can purchase a reading from me on my website, simonforster.com. You can check out other things like Learn Your Chart, for instance, which is a specific program that's designed to teach you how to read your own chart. And then you have a reading as well. Beginner's course astrologies I've got, where I teach you to become an evolutionary astrologer in that way. And yeah, just general sort of, I don't know what else, just support. I greatly appreciate all of your support and all of your attention. And to every single one of you out there, have a wonderful week. Take care. Bye-bye.